Ithinar's Bloom by H. Jane Harrington. The Grand Entrance of the Bardian. Chapter 17. Playing the Spade. The secret to a winning hand is not to play the strongest card, but the right one. Master Kezias. Step in, now thrust, Kier instructed. Vaughn moved forward, pushing his blade out. Good, now again, keep your arm up. Vaughn made another lunge, but Kier brought her short sword down from above and knocked the blade from his hand. Don't lock your arms. Vaughn grunted and bent to retrieve the sword. Suddenly, Kier swept upon him and whacked him behind the knees. His legs buckled and he sank to the floor. What was that for? Vaughn snapped. Never turn your back to an enemy. Might as well gift-wrap your own head. You're not my enemy, Kier. I am, so long as I hold a blade against you. Never assume that your ally won't run you through the moment your guard is down. But you're my protector. Even in combat, I need not fear my own guardian, Vaughn commented, dragging the tip of his sword as he rose. Did your brother think the same thing before he died? Kier asked. She had to be harsh. He doled out faith in others like a cow plopped pies. She had to bury that trust before it buried him. Vaughn blinked. What are you saying? I'm saying that you assign trust too easily. And I'm saying that you got a lot to learn about fighting before you can afford to turn your back to anyone, including me. Honestly, I don't share your offensive ability, Vaughn sighed. This may be a complete waste of time. Besides, what's the purpose of a guardian? I have no need to fight with you at my side. Kier shook her head in exasperation and turned to face the far wall of their rented room. Even after 3 days of training, she still hadn't gotten through to him. How could she cook a rabbit that kept jumping off the spit? Vaughn was smart as a whip in bookish ways, yet dull as a river pebble in fightin' ones. He lacked the offensive magics to make him a fantastic swordsman, but Kier wasn't aiming him toward mastery, just rudimentary proficiency. She fully expected to die, and when that happened, Vaughn would have to fend for himself. A fightin' chance wasn't much of one without the fightin' part. Vaughn suddenly lunged toward Kier's unguarded back, and she spun, catching his blade against hers. Never turn your back to an opponent, Vaughn chided. Kier allowed a grin to creep across her face. Unless you're fast enough to take him on. She attempted several more attacks, but Vaughn still wasn't defending himself with conviction. When she brought her blade to his throat once more, Kier strangled a frustrated wail. Don't think like a pincushion, Stick! Vaughn cocked his head. I beg your pardon? Kier sighed and lowered her weapon. It's just something my master Kezias used to say. You want to be the pin, not the pincushion. Vaughn stared at her blankly. Kier waved her hand in dismissal of the notion. Never mind. She toyed with a few more teaching strategies, none of which seemed fitting to expediency. Swishing swords around a room was no way to learn. Vaughn had to feel the need to protect himself. I'm going to tell you this once, Stick. I'm your opponent, and I give no quarter. Be on your guard. Kier saluted him tersely with the standard warrior's tribute to the gods of the offensives. By Noma's honor. She allowed Vaughn to attack first, a glancing blow off her blade. She parried and slashed at his left arm, slicing a shallow wound across the bicep. Vaughn stumbled backward, dumbfounded at the thin line of blood trailing across his sleeve. You cut me, he cried like she'd just slapped his mama. I warned you. Now defend yourself. Kier lunged and Vaughn brought his blade up clumsily, barely managing to divert the strike. When Kier attacked again, he dodged, but she allowed the tip of her sword to nick his cheek. Vaughn seemed to stumble over his own shock. Then his eyes narrowed, and his disbelief dissolved into fierce determination. Now they were getting somewhere. He delivered a powerful thrust, which Kier knocked aside. Stepping forward, he sliced toward her again. His maneuvering was not perfect, but at least he was using the skill she had taught him. He was finally fighting back. They exchanged blows around the room, upending furniture and leaving several scars in the plank walls. When Kier was satisfied with the progress, she held her blade up in salute. Well done, Vaughn. Lesson concluded for today. Tomorrow we'll start hand to hand. He smiled triumphantly through the breathless panting. Did I pass, Guardian Ithinar? I give you marks. Took me a whole week to get to your level when I was in training. Vaughn flashed her a skeptical eye. Kier returned her sword to its scabbard and uprighted a chair that had been knocked aside. Let me heal up those scratches for you. Vaughn examined his bicep and winced. You call this a scratch? It was a love tap, Kier japed. Quit your belly aching, Sprog, or next time I'll show you what a real cut is. Keir and Vaughn made their way through the wild streets of Southport. It was a city that never slept, and Keir believed it to be the most chaotic place in all the Isles. Like other ports, it was built on the blood, oak, and rigging of briny tars and their lost ships. Most of the buildings were lashed together with the remnants of the sea, sporting unmistakable characteristics of the shipwreckage that formed their frames. Loud music emanated from every bar on every street. Strumpets waved handkerchiefs from flesh-pot balconies, luring men and women alike to their charms, and offering obscene promises of forbidden enchantments. Drunken fishermen stumbled along, moving from one tavern to the next. Occasional fights erupted, and were usually finished in the rowdy streets, with onlookers cheering the ruckus. It was Keir's kind of place, uncouth and wild, full of undesirables. Folk like her could blend in and disappear, overlooked by the other sinners of the town. In civilization she tended to stand out. Here nothing was required of her, no societal expectations. Even amongst the pirates, drunkards, beggars, and harlots, Keir felt at home. She led Vaughn into a tavern, and they found an empty table toward the back, enveloped in shadow. Most customers preferred the well-lit tables closer to the minstrel's stage. That suited Keir just fine, and she sat, as usual, with her back to the wall. This was the 5th excursion to the red light district, and Keir was finally ready to make some dealings. It had been 12 days since their arrival in Southport. They had lingered plenty long enough. They sat silently, observing the patrons. Vaughn retrieved 2 glasses and a bottle of rum from the tavern-master. Keir accepted her glass without taking her eyes off a shady-looking character at the end of the bar. He dressed fairly well, but the cut of his jib was clear. She had seen him before, over the course of the last few days. He frequented this tavern, and Keir recognized his weaselly type almost instantly. She decided against approaching him right away, as urgency would give him leverage. She wanted to see him on the Fulham-by. Vaughn followed the path of her eyes. "I've seen him here before. He glances our way occasionally. Is he trouble?" "He's a trade dealer. Works under-the-table transactions and the like. Smuggling, shady deals, that kind of thing. We'll be talking trade with him shortly," Keir explained. "How will he know that we mean to do business?" "He knows. He's known since the first time our gazes crossed," Keir replied, taking her grog in one short gulp. It was watered, but then most of the liquor in this city was. She pushed her booted toe against the leg of the opposite chair, scooting it out from the table a few inches. Although his back was to them, the man seemed to sense the invitation. He retrieved his hat and empty glass from the bar and started toward them, slipping casually between the tables. He slid into the waiting chair and set the empty glass before him. "Yous don't smell like a fish barrel. Looking for business or pleasure, are we, love?" he asked. "Either way, I be your man." Keir topped his glass and waited for him to down it. "Just an honest traveller with need to move some legal cargo discreetly off-island." The man regarded her, his keen eyes reading her every movement. "I might be able to proffer assistance with such a task." He removed a deck from his inner jacket pocket and shuffled the cards expertly. "They call me Ace," he said, laying the top card on the table, revealing an ace of diamonds. "Here's my card." He flicked it toward Keir and smiled, his golden tooth gleaming in the dim light as she caught it. Keir slid the card into her pocket, then poured Ace another drink. Vaughn watched the exchange from his seat. He tensed slightly as the man turned attention his way. "And who do we have here? Good-looking chap, if I do say so myself." Ace slid another card to the top of the deck and laid it face down before Vaughn. "Care to wet your feet, lad? I do covet a game of chance every now and again. Cards are smarter than people, they say." Ace tapped the card and Vaughn turned it over, revealing the Jack of Hearts. Keir's eyes narrowed. "What are the terms?" "Depends on the cargo and destination." "Very little cargo. Just one Jack of Hearts and myself, looking to make Crillia by some time late next week." Ace slipped a card toward Keir. "Crillia. Fancy mining luminaire from fish fodder, do we? Not much cause to set foot or fin in the depths of that dung bubble, forgive me saying so. But to each his own, I say, and that's your affair, love. Can do. Air skiff to Northport, then mare ferry to Crillia. Easy enough." Keir did not touch the card. "How much?" Ace squinted one eye and regarded the rafters, as if calculating the price on a ceiling abacus. 700 on departure, 700 upon arrival." "I don't want the goods damaged. Dent and scratch discounts will apply," Keir warned. "On my warranty. We'll meet again on the morrow, 1:30 sunrise. Have the cargo ready at Outwalk Pier 25. With that, Ace scooped up his hat and slipped out the tavern door. Keir stared at the abandoned card on the table. After a moment, she flipped it over, revealing the ace of spades. The cards were smart indeed. Seems like the ace of clubs would suit you more, Vaughn commented. No, spades fits. Kier smiled in spite of herself. I don't know, Vaughn said, rubbing a bruise on his shoulder. Your club seems real enough to me. Clubs are for beating, but spades have a sharp point. She mockingly jabbed him in the ribs with a finger to illustrate. And they dig graves, she added under her breath, as they rose and made for the door.